This quick lesson is on the business cycle. All economies go through cyclical periods. No economy ever goes straight up. No economy, hopefully, is on a downward cycle. The American economy, as it's matured, follows a pretty specific cycle. Hopefully, actually, the cycle is on its way up. But essentially what happens is you have, at the top of the cycle, you have a peak. At the bottom, you have something called a trough. As it's increasing, we call this an expansionary period, or expansion. As it's going down toward the trough, we call this a contraction. During expansion, you have increased GDP growth, whereas during a contraction, you have decreased GDP growth. We use the term recession to define when we have 2 straight quarters, or 2 3-month periods of negative GDP growth. So you can definitely have one quarter where you have a blip in the GDP growth and you have negative 0.5% or whatever, but 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth equals a recession. And we have recessions every couple of years, every 4 or 5 years, 10 years, it sort of depends. A business cycle's length isn't necessarily easy to determine, because some business cycles last much longer than other business cycles. And there are extenuating circumstances that would lead to a recession or a trough where we would start another expansionary period. But it's important to know that the goal is to keep moving up and being able to control these peaks and troughs through monetary and fiscal policy. For AP, we've learned about the monetary and fiscal policy as a way to control the business cycle. And those of you in regular econ, it's important to know that we have determined that this business cycle can be controlled through government action or through the interaction with the banks, the Federal Reserve. So this is the business cycle: peak, trough, expansion, contraction. 2 of the GDP, it's a measurement of GDP, and 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth equals a recession. All right?